Hey everybody, it's Tristan Shovels here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel deck profile. And even if you're just here for the deck list, remember to like, comment, and subscribe because it really makes a difference for the channel. So, the new season just started in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and I've been playing an Unchained build without using any Yubel monsters. The thing that separates my list and made it feel really good to play is including the small Bystial package with Bystial Magnemite, Bystial Druis Worm, and Bystial Baldrake. This helps combat the Yubel decks that are running rampant on ladder right now. Having the Bystials allows you to put 8,000 damage on board much more easily and closes out games that otherwise Unchained wouldn't be able to close out alone. So let's get into the card by card. First, we have 3 copies of Maxi because we're playing Master Duel. Then we have Torghad from the Underworld, which is the main starter for this deck. Alternatively, you could be using Dark Beckoning Beast, but I like Torghad from the Underworld because it bridges directly into Fiendish Rhino Warrior, which is a semi-garnet for the deck, but can send a level 6 Fiend to the graveyard. At least that's the one you're always going to want to be targeting, which is the Unchained Soul of Shayama, so that you can bring it back from the graveyard via its own effect, and hopefully Xyz summon the DDD Wave High King Caesar, which can negate 2 special summons, which is very powerful in the current format, and without the Fiendsmith cards in the game, this is the best engine to reach it with the Unchained Soul of Sharvara and Unchained Soul of Shayama. Then we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Unchained Twins Aruha. This is probably the best of the level 3 Unchains because it can special summon itself from the hand by destroying 1 card you control. Then we have Unchained Twins Rikeya. This helps you play around Nibiru the Primal Being sometimes by destroying your own cards. Then we have Unchained Twins Sarama, which if you haven't normal summoned yet and you're able to get Soul Lord Yama out from the extra deck, you can pretty much search for this card and summon it easily with that normal summon and bring back one of the trap cards that you already popped on your side of the field during the turn and set up a better board for the next turn. Speaking of those trap cards, we have 3 Escape of the Unchained, which can destroy an Unchained monster and any other card on the field. And Abominable Chamber of the Unchained, which we're only running at 2 copies because it's slightly less useful in this deck, but you want to have more than one, and it can help you bring back even your Unchained Link monsters if they somehow get removed from the field before they're able to activate those effects. Then we have 3 Unchained Soul of Sharvara. This is the best card in the deck, and we're still allowed to run 3 copies, which is what makes this deck viable versus something like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Paper TCG, where you're only allowed to run 1 copy. Another key card is Abominable Unchained Soul. This has that 3,000 attack stat that helps you close out games, and at the cost of a discard, you can destroy 1 card on the field, which is non-targeting and helps you get through a lot of situations that you otherwise would not be able to win from. Then we have 3 of the deck Searcher, the Abomination's Prison. Although this works a lot like Reinforcement of the Army, you can also set it and destroy it to special summon an Unchained from deck, which is a quality it shares with the Unchained trap cards that I mentioned earlier. Then we have Triple Tactics Talent, running 1 copy. You might be able to run 2 if you cut something like Wailing of the Unchained Souls, but I think having the extra destruction from Wailing and being able to extend even further, since the special summon effects of Escape of the Unchained and Abominable Chamber of the Unchained are only once per turn, having Wailing feels essential right now. But otherwise, 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent helps you break those boards. 1 Pot of Prosperity. This is the best searcher in the game. It's limited to 1 in every format now for a reason. And so we're playing that because you don't necessarily need every single card in this extra deck. Like the 2nd Wave High King Caesar can go, and other cards from the extra deck you can also banish. But I would always try to keep 2 of the Unchained Soul Lord of Yama because that's the strongest card in the extra deck. Then we have Triple Tactics Thrust, which feels good to play in this deck because even if your opponent doesn't control any monsters, you can set a spell and trap directly from deck and you can set one of the Unchained Trap cards if you haven't drawn any, and extend a little further after facing some interruption from your opponent's hand traps. 2 Called by the Grave to face off against Maxi, and same situation with Crossout Designator, although they can be used against other hand traps like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and Crossout Designator also will target Infinite Impermanence, which we're only running at 2 copies because I didn't want to go any further above 40 cards in this deck, although I am playing 41. So I'm trying to stick to that principle, and I would recommend you try that as well. Then with the extra deck, we've got DDD Wave High King Caesar, which I've already mentioned. Having those 2 special summon negates is essential. Then we have Zeus. Sometimes you get stuck and need to clear the whole board, so you can Xyz summon Zeus as long as you aren't Fiend locked, which is one of the issues with this deck, is that it Fiend locks itself sometimes. But that doesn't matter when you have Superstar Slayer Typhon, because that's a Fiend, which can help fix a lot of situations where you're trying to push for game on turn 2 or turn 4 if the game goes on that long, because it has that bounce effect and stops monsters with more than 3,000 attack from activating their effects, which I've noticed has actually made Abominable Unchained Soul a little weaker against people who are playing Typhon, but we're playing Typhon as well, so that evens out a little bit. Unchained Soul of Rage, this is one of the strongest cards in the extra deck because you can link summon using your opponent's monster's material during their turn, which you always want to try to do to summon SP Little Knight and get her extra banish on the opponent's turn. Dark, the Dark Charmer Gloomy. This card helps you extend when your opponent is playing Dark attribute monsters, which pretty much every deck in the game plays. Muckraker from the Underworld. This can protect your Fiends, but in a deck like this, you want to be destroying a lot of your own Fiends, so we're mainly using it for the special summon effect at the cost of a discard. Unchained Soul Lord of Yama. This is the strongest card in the deck, without a doubt. It reads like a custom card because you can add 1 Unchained monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, which allows you to recycle those 3 copies of Sharvara. And if a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in your graveyard, banish this. Special summon 1 Fiend monster from your hand or graveyard. Then you can destroy 1 card you control. I rarely find myself destroying 1 card I control, but it's a great way to bring back the Unchained Soul of Rage, especially if you weren't able to use its Link Summon effect because you used something like Escape of the Unchained earlier. Nightmare Unicorn, although SP Little Knight is now in the game, we're still playing this because it's a Fiend, so sometimes you get Fiend locked, and you want to be able to Link Climb using Link 3s like this, and Unchained Soul of Anguish, which can Link Summon with an opponent's monster during your turn, which helps you bring out the boss monster of the deck, Unchained Abomination, or more likely to finish off games, the Access Code Talker with its 5300 attack stat when you use a Link 3 to summon it. So that's the Unchained deck list, and hopefully this season the Bystials will really help push this deck so that it can compete at the current power level of other decks that you'll find in Master Rank like Voiceless Voice and Yubel. So let's get into those games. First up, I had a game versus Tearlament. We are going second. Luckily, I drew Maxi in the opener, so I activated it right away in the draw phase. No fear of Cyframe Gear Gamma. The opponent activates the Kashtira field spell, so start to wonder whether they're on Kashtira or on Tearlament. Either way, this Fenrir seems like a good Infinite Impermanence target. And then they activate the Tearlament Scream, get the Rhino Heart. It's clear they're on Tearlament. And that Shiren is a wonderful target for Bystial Druid Worm to banish, negating its effect effectively. And they use the Fenrir effect even though that is negated by the Imperm. Draw for turn. Get a nice Unchained Trap card there. Sacrifice the Druid Worm to get a Send effect because I know otherwise that Fenrir would be a huge problem. And now we have Shyama on board. But they get some incredible mills here, allowing them to add Tearlament's Kashtira to their hand, mill even further, mill Rhino Heart, mill the Havness from their hand, send Shiren from the deck to the graveyard so they have an extra body on field. Tearlament's Kikalos comes out. I feel this was kind of a misplay to go for Rukalos here. Personally, I would have gone for Kaleido Heart and gotten the Shyama back into the deck, but they go for the special summon negate on the Aruha. I'm still able to extend from there though because of Shyama's on-field effect, and a card's been destroyed, so the Abominable Unchained Soul comes out, along with Sharvara. They know Sharvara is going to be a problem. They set it to face down defense position with Snow, but that's okay because we still have Yama. We go into Yama with our other monsters, and use Sharvara's effect to pop the Sharvara on field, get that Sharvara's effect from graveyard. Now we have Shyama in the graveyard. After that we can summon Caesar, and our opponent sees that it's pretty much over for them, even with those fantastic mills earlier in the game. Here I had a game against Yubel where I'm going first. Draw 5. And in the opener we have Pot of Prosperity, so I banish 6 from the extra deck, making sure to leave 2 of the Yama. And that Called By was looking like a good addition to the hand, but I already have the cross that designator, so I go for Sharvara. We get the Shyama, Soul Lord Yama, and since we haven't normal summoned yet, this is pretty much the optimal combo where I can use Sarama, bring back the Chamber, and pop the other Unchained Trap card. Pop Sarama, and bring out Highway King Caesar, and link those off into Unchained Soul of Rage. So, except for not having Escape from the Unchained and having Chamber, this feels like a pretty good end board. And we have the Bestial Magnum in hand, which is going to come in handy quite soon since they're on Yubel. And they use the Dark Beckoning Beast, Nightmare Throne, they send their own Spirit of Yubel, that gets negated. And we can set again from deck because we detach Sharvara, and I use Bestial Magnum right away because otherwise they can summon Phantom of Yubel. I activated Unchained Soul of Rage here to avoid them summoning SP Little Knight, however they dodged with Salamangreat Owl Mirage. So that was interesting. Luckily, draw Ash Blossom to negate the potential search of Nightmare Throne off their Spirit of Yubel. But they've got a Phantom of Yubel incoming here, and with the Nightmare Throne, they can get another Spirit of Yubel onto the field and go into this Unchained monster, which they're going to try to link off the Wave King High Caesar. So I pretty much have to negate that, and I'm thinking, what fiend are they going to add back? And the fiend they add back turns out to be the Phantom of Yubel, so that they can keep summoning that over and over, because all they needed for that is the materials in the graveyard. They go for Access Code Talker, and I think they're looking for a way to do lethal damage. In my head, I thought they still might have Nightmare Pain as one of those 2 cards in hand, so I popped my own Caesar here because I wanted to ensure that all the monsters on my field had low attack and defense points. And they summon one last Phantom of Yubel here, and pretty much realizing that I've drawn my entire deck off of Maxi, and they can't do enough damage without Nightmare Pain, and don't have enough materials thanks to Bestial Magnum, so they scoop it up. Next up was a game versus Yubel, where they are playing a small Unchained package. We are going second again. They start with opening of the Spirit Gates. I'm saving this Ash Blossom for its juiciest target, which I think is the Samsara Lotus here. And they have the Gamma, which I really thought they wouldn't have after they discarded Driver. Aside from drawing Driver, they pretty much go full combo here. And there's nothing left that I can do. There was no way to really play around them having Gamma, but that allows them to go into Sprite Elf, which I think will be to their detriment eventually, as we'll see later on. They use the Grave Squirmer, bring back the Yubel, pop the Yubel with their Sharvara, use the Mill's effect, get Terra Incarnate from deck, summon their own Unchained Soul of Rage, set their own Escape of the Unchained, then they haven't even normal summoned for that Dark Beckoning Beast. They extend into Gigantic Sprite, bring out the Ibli, link Ibli off for IP Masquerena. That allows them to summon Ibli to my field and potentially mess up my whole game plan. However, I have Triple Tactics Thrust, which is going to come in handy here. You draw for turn, tribute the Ibli after trying to bait something out with the Unchained Search card. They destroy Sharvara for some reason, And here I was really worried they would go into SP Little Knight and banish the back row that I'm setting off of Sharvara, but instead they get a little greedy and go for Apollosa, which is a perfect target to be taken by Triple Tactics Talent. They pop the Phantom of Yubel, forgetting that maybe they don't have Nightmare Throne, so now they have no Yubel monsters, and I can negate their Yama in the graveyard, link it out for Dark Charmer, go with IP into Axis Code-Talker. Use Axis Code-Talker's effect. Maybe this was a slight misplay because now that they are not Fiend locked with Sharvara on field, they can summon Bestial Magnamut. But it's okay because we can still extend using Shyama to destroy their spell cards just in case for next turn. We get the Abominable Unchained Soul, and that's enough lethal damage through full Yubel combo. Pretty impressive for Unchained without Yubel. So we're back with the deck list, and I think that adding the Bestial monsters to this deck instead of more traditional hand traps like Effect Veiler or Cypher Gear Gamma helped push this version of the Unchained deck forward so that it can combat the meta, which is dominated by Yubel, at least on ranked ladder. And adapting your deck to the meta is one of the most important things you can do, so when the Fiendsmith cards are released, please accept that this version of Unchained will no longer be viable, and cards like Unchained Soul Lord of Yama will probably be hit by then. But until that day, try out this deck for yourself. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.